Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Robin's Nest. I want to get into the Xfinity race this weekend. I want to talk about that a little bit, the finish to be specific. So remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, share this video, the works. Let's get into it. All right, so I want to talk about, what I feel like a solution for this absolute nonsense that they try to pass as racing, which is, it's not just limited to the Xfinity Series. It happens in the Cup Series, not quite as often, but it does happen. It happens in the Truck Series fairly often. This is kind of like the new form of, I don't know, just what NASCAR is nowadays, just put it that way. You know, where passing is kind of just out the window. We'll just run each other over. If you wreck, you wreck. Whatever. You know, I don't care because nothing's going to happen to me. It's kind of the mentality. You know, and I've been reading, Mark Martin said that NASCAR's been put into a box, and a box they shouldn't have been put into because this should be a self-policing sport and all that kind of stuff. And I'm of the opinion, yes, I've got an axe to grind with NASCAR. There's no doubt about that. I'd make no bones about that. I don't. I'm biased, 100%. I have a legitimate problem with the way that the current leadership in NASCAR has steered the ship over the past few years. I wasn't a fan of Brian France and how he handled things, and I think Jim's done I think he's done a worse job. And which is impressive because I didn't think that was possible, because Brian was pretty bad. So, no doubt that I'm a little biased. Just straight off the top up front. Okay. But what has transpired in these series with this garbage of just cleaning each other out could have easily been prevented by officiating. Okay? When you sit back and you say, boys, have at it, this is ultimately what's going to happen. Guys are just going to absolutely use each other up, crash left and right. I mean, that's a product of motor racing when you don't officiate. Okay? You look at every other series, every professional series on the planet. Okay? Every single one of them have avoidable contact penalties. Now, whether that be a time penalty tacked on at the end of the race, whether that be when you come down for your pit stop, you have to sit there for, whatever the time penalty is, 5 seconds or whatever. Doesn't matter. Every one of these series has rules like that. And then you look at these series, and very, very seldom do you ever see guys doing garbage like what happened in that Xfinity race this weekend. Why? Because they know that there's going to be a penalty. And it's not even a question. It's 100% there's going to be a penalty. And then the playoff format has a lot to do with it as well. Because, yeah, I could go into this corner. I can run into the leader. I could take him out. If I end up taking myself out, whatever, we'll just win another race down the road to qualify for the playoffs. Whereas season-long points, there's a little bit more of an implication towards your overall if you go into the corner and you wreck yourself along with whoever you're running into. It has more of an implication. You look at Ryan Newman, just for reference, in 2003 in NASCAR, in the Cup Series. I think he won more races than anybody that season, but finished like 7th or 8th in points because he had several DNFs. So it had more of an implication than what it does now, because the mentality, like I said, is, if I wreck, then shoot, I can win a race later on down the road and still qualify, so it's not a big deal. That's got a lot to do with it. But then also the win in your end thing, like I was just saying, also plays a role when these guys are like, well, I can make my whole season. If I clean this guy out and I end up making it by him and win the race, well, that's my whole season right there. I can just coast until I get to the playoffs and, whatever. It's an environment that NASCAR has fostered. And I think deliberately so. They are more interested nowadays in entertainment. Whatever you want to, whatever however you want to define that word. That's what they're more interested in. They don't. Racing is secondary. That would be why we're 3 years into this new car, and short track racing is still awful. Road course racing is terrible because they don't care about the racing. They do not care about that. All they care about is what can make us the most money. Steve Phelps doesn't know jack about racing. Nothing. Steve O'Donnell, same way. Jim does, because Jim turned IMSA into a powerhouse. So I'm really confused as to why he's just keeping the status quo with current NASCAR and just letting it go on the way that it's been going. But back to the penalties, there needs to be driving standard penalties. I mean, just 100% across the board. I mean, if you run into somebody, there's a penalty for that. NASCAR used to have that in place. I remember off the top of my head, 2004, Jason Leffler in a Busch race at Daytona wrecked Michael Waltrip coming off of turn 2 on the last lap. It slowed up his momentum. He went in turn 3 and 4. Dale Jr. went to go around him on the outside. Jason just opened up the wheel and drove Jr. into the fence. And then Mike Wallace skirted by both of them, ended up winning the race. Jason finished, I think, 2nd or 3rd, but then they gave him a time penalty immediately after the race, so he went from 2nd or 3rd back to, I think, last car on the lead lap, which was in like the 20s. 2001 at Martinsville. Kevin Harvick was leading. He got bumped out of the way by Bobby Hamilton. They went to the next corner. Kevin ran into Bobby, spun him out. Bobby didn't hit anything, just spun out, kept on going. And they parked Kevin for like 2 laps. But then you look at last year. Lane Riggs received a similar penalty. He and Stephen Parsons got into it. I think Nashville, if I'm not mistaken, is where it happened. Stephen was running all over Lane. Lane went into one of the corners, hit Stephen, and turned him around. I don't even think Stephen completely spun out. He just went up and nudged the wall, kept on going. Limited damage. And they parked Lane, I think, for 2 laps. Completely ruined his race. But that's like the first time that they brought that rule out and actually implemented it in a long time. The only real driving standards rules that they have put in place is if you right rear hook somebody and turn them into the fence. But then they don't even implement that fairly and evenly. That's just dependent on how they feel at that particular time. Because Austin Cindric did the same thing to Ty Dillon at COTA, and he essentially got a slap on the wrist. I think a monetary fine, maybe some points. Everybody else got suspended for doing that over the past couple of years. Not him. Because they were going slow. Or going slower. Chris Rice, president of Colleague, I think he said on Twitter that there was like $40,000 worth of damage, maybe more than that, to Ty's car, even at slow speed. So let's get some rules in place, and let's stick with them, and distribute them evenly across it doesn't matter who you are, what your last name is, who you drive for. If you do this is your penalty. IndyCar doesn't have a problem implementing that rule. I mean, there's avoidable contact penalties in IndyCar, in IMSA, which is owned by NASCAR. Just implement the same officiating in NASCAR. Why can't we do that? Why can't you own IMSA? You own NASCAR. You've turned IMSA into a powerhouse. Yet we're going to allow NASCAR to sit over here and flounder all the things that the fans have been complaining about for decades at this point. We're just going to double down on all of it. Everyone complained about the championship last year, the way that it ended, that Joey Logano won after being 15th in the regular season. And their solution to that problem is, well, we'll just change the venue so then Penske won't have a leg up. Okay, you can do that, but it's not fixing the fundamental problem. I just feel like the people that they put in place in NASCAR just have no clue. No clue. And that's why they need to put racers in officiating positions rather than suits like Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell. Preferably guys who have been in a race car in the last 20 years. Because, like, Elton Sawyer, that dude, come on. I don't know what he's doing, why he's doing it. I guess he's just, because his position, he doesn't want to get fired, I don't know. But he is toeing the company line. He's spewing the same nonsense that the Steves do. So, I don't know. But I guess it doesn't matter as long as they keep getting viewership numbers and people, by the millions, people keep watching this crap. So, I don't hate NASCAR. I hate what they're doing to it. It can't be a self-policing sport. It can't be. No motorsport category can be self-policing. It can't. It will ultimately descend into absolute chaos, which is what's happened in NASCAR. And you could have seen it coming a mile away. You didn't need a crystal ball to see that it was going to end up being this way. It's just common sense. So yeah, I feel like they should come down heavy on Sammy Smith for what he did. But that's another thing too, is like these penalties need to be dished out like the day of. We don't need to wait until Tuesday or Wednesday. That just seems like incompetence to me. Once again, I hate to compare NASCAR to every other category that's out there, but nobody else has a problem doing that. Everybody else gets their penalties the day of. Either during the race or immediately after the race. Not 3 or 4 days down the road. These guys, like I said, the guys that are running the show, it's like they're more interested in the business side of it. But when it comes to application and how racing series are supposed to run, they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. And it's not on anybody. It's not on the drivers. It's not on anybody else. They have exploited the arena that they've been given. Okay? When you give these guys the ability to do A and B, they're going to do that. Why wouldn't you? Especially if it gives you a competitive edge against somebody else. Like, I don't blame Sammy Smith for cleaning out Gray. I don't blame him. That's the arena you've been put in. But they never should have been put there. This should have been buttoned up a long, long time ago. We shouldn't be having this conversation. And we shouldn't have people saying that, well, NASCAR doesn't need to get involved. No, NASCAR needs to be involved. They need to officiate. They need to get people who know what they're doing to officiate. Not people who have their eyes closed. Not the kind of people who wait until the last lap. There's a wreck and the leader is 5 feet from the start-finish line and we press the caution button because we want to get a restart and an exciting finish. Those kind of people need to be fired and get competent people in these roles based on merit that at least know something about motor racing. And that's another thing too, speaking of the end of the races, the overtime, it fosters this environment as well. I mean, that was an overtime finish during the Xfinity race. Overtime belongs in ball sports, not motor racing. Races finish under caution. That's the nature of the beast. Happens in IndyCar. It happens everywhere. In every kind of motorsport. Except for NASCAR and I guess dirt track racing. I'm not sure, but I know NASCAR for sure. It's silly. It's gimmicky. If a race finishes under caution, it finishes under caution. I never had a problem with it back in the 2000s before they implemented this green, white, checkered bullcrap. And my thing is if you're going to keep it, it should be one and done. One shot at it. If they crash, that's it. Done and over. Move on to next week. It shouldn't be like an unlimited thing. Let's just do as many green, white checkers as possible. Okay, well, let's wreck half the field in the process. Because that's what's going to happen. I know my arguments are falling on deaf ears. These are arguments that people have made forever. you know, since Brian France took over and started trying to turn NASCAR into the NFL or NBA on wheels. People have made these arguments and they've not listened. They're not gonna listen, you know. Like I said, all they care about is money. Money, money, money. Racing be damned at this point. And it's sad to see. It really is. I would love to see some pure racers, some guys who know a little something about it, get in positions of authority within the NASCAR, you know, 4A, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, not 4A. Just some guys who know what they're doing in places of power. I would pay good money to see that happen. But until then, we're going to keep having nonsense like this, and we're going to have conversations like this until they start listening, until the actual racing is as important as the idiotic, gimmicky nonsense that they peddle out every weekend. So, anyways, if you found this interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos. We will have more stuff rolling out this week, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. It means a lot. And here's the hope that things get better in the future as far as NASCAR is concerned. We'll see. I'm holding out hope. So, fingers crossed. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.
És 100 fölfele. 100 fölfele, jobb 2 tempó, 20-ra bal 2 tempó, 25-ra bal 2 tempó, 25-re bal 2 szűk, bal 2 szűk, és bal 2, és bal 2, majd 50-re jobb 2, itt a bal.
You know, everyone knows by now, Sammy Smith absolutely acted like a jackass, and beep doo 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 shop boop.